Croeso and welcome to Tales for Wales, a inaccurate Welsh history lesson and your little ray of sunshine on a Sunday morn. I'm Jack, I'm joined by Franks, as always, my friend of 20 years now, is it? Maybe
yes.
even more.
Maybe
Time
even
just
more.
keeps ticking along, doesn't it?
The relentless march. They'll probably do a hip ed history podcast about us one day.
Soon will be history.
Fucking wish, mate. Life's just relentless. Just never stops.
Mate, on bloody, when was it, Monday? No, Sunday. I wish I was fucking history. I wish I was in the fucking ground on Sunday. I had such a fucking horrendous poisoning.
We were meant to do a pod on Sunday, weren't we?
Oh, yes. And that was one of the first things to fall at the wayside, along with just my general happiness.
Well, we haven't done a pod in a while, actually, because we banked up a few.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to today.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
But we're still off the booze. We haven't given up. We're not fucking cowards. But I'm taking a couple of weeks just to get back in shape. Get back back fighting form.
My last hurrah, if you like, was on Saturday. I went up to Wingfest in Bristol, the annual pilgrimage. Yeah. And that's why I was so fucking wrecked and poisoned on Sunday, because I just way too much beer.
Yeah, and I went to go watch
just all day long.
And I went to go watch the streets down Cardiff Bay, and I got hammered as well. So, but we did say we had such a fucking heavy summer of doing the pod, which makes us drink quite a bit, and going out with people. So we've decided to have a few lunchtime records, so a bit more highbrow. And we found out doing a lunchtime record, it's so much easier to edit because we haven't fucked up our notes and got it all so wrong.
Jesus, yeah. We said that the other day, didn't we? It's like when we do them drunk, although they're great fun, don't get me wrong, the edit, we just go on so many stupid fucking riffs and things like that, and you're listening for about 20 minutes and you go, I gotta cut all that now. That was just a complete
that's a libel.
Yeah, I can't say that.
Yeah. Well, that's just not on.
Yeah, disgusted with ourselves.
Yeah, how was Wingfest? I haven't spoke to you about it. Was it wingy?
It was quality. Yeah, lots of wings, lots of beer. What more do you bloody want? It was fucking scorcho though. So hot. Yeah. And you know me in the heat. I'm not really one for it.
I'm with you now, mate. I used to be kind of like pro heat. But now I'm like, fucking, it's because we're so muggy. I'm doing this topless right now, and I'm so hot and bothered.
Mate, that's what does me. The dry heat, I'm not great in it, but I can sort of push through. But when it's so muggy and humid, I was sodden with sweat, and it was just like I had to queue for ages. You can imagine my face at this point, right? When I was queuing up for a beer, and there's fairly big queues. There's like 4 bars you can go to. I got there, and they went, "Oh, sorry, our card machine's down." And I was like, well, who fucking carries cash these days, sort of thing. I was like, fine, right, I'll go. I was like, next bar over. And he said the same thing. And I said, is it down all over the site, sort of thing? He went, no, just go to the next one. They'll have it up and running. It's just ours. And I was thinking, it's not just yours, is it? Because I've already been through 2. But anyway, fine. I went to the third one. And then I went to the third one. And I was about maybe 3 people before the bar.
Yeah.
And some guy was kicking off at the front. He turned around and went, "Oh, just so you all know, the card machine's broken." And I was so angry, I did like a real pathetic one, like, "You should put a sign up. Put a sign up."
I gotta say, the only time you get irate is when no one's serving you beer. It's the only time you ever get pissed off with anything. It was ridiculous. This country's gone to the dogs.
I go to Wingfest for 2 things: chicken wings and beer. Don't take 50% of my fun away like that. That's just not on at all.
So how did you drink?
But, well, that was about halfway through the day. And earlier, someone I went with, they'd won some like little spin the wheel competition or something. So they had like 2 free tokens to go get beers. Yeah. So she was like, "Oh, why didn't you just take the tokens, go up, and we'll just like share what we got left, between us and whatever cups we got, then we'll fuck off." And I was like, "All right, cool. That's something at least." By the time I got to the bar, they'd sorted out the card machine issue, right? Oh. But enter phase number 2 of hell is they charge you 50p per like plastic cup. It's like solid plastic, not the little shit ones, right? And then the idea is you're meant to come back with them, and you don't get charged again. But I didn't have them with me because I was banking on the 2 freebies. Yeah. So they gave me an ungodly fucking sum they wanted from my purse. And I was like,
they say nurses have it tough.
I know, exactly. But when he said that, I was just like, you have picked the wrong person, good sir. I have been passed from pillar to post in this fucking
All
festival.
you've had to do is queue up twice. And now you get a free
3
drink.
times. 3 bloody times. 4 if you include me going back for the freebies. Anyway, guess who didn't? No one. I didn't have to pay that 50p for those fucking those cups and telling you that.
Well done. This is nearly as good as that anecdote you said where you could keep drinking for a few days.
It is a good one. Rage is, relatable, isn't it? People get
Rage is
relate to
related.
frustration.
Yeah, but it is. I'd say just on par with. And so I drank for 3 days straight. Whoa! So I queued for 4 queues. Oh, what travels you've taken! What journeys you've taken!
Call me the new Prince of Wales, for I have suffered more than my kinsman. Yeah.
Dost thou not recognise friend from foe? I've travelled so far, barkeep, hath you no honour?
Yeah.
What, mate?
You should have known. It's Bristol. You should have noticed my accent, my exotic accent from an hour and a half away, and been like, this guy's travelled too far for this.
I mean, I love when we do this pod, but it does make me want to always have a drink, because I now want to be in a pub with you in Bristol for your stag. On the second day, I think we lost each other because you went. I don't know where we were, but we kind of split into 2 splinter
We went
groups,
to that
didn't we?
burger place. That's my last memory.
Yeah. And you took,
I think it was after that we split up because I don't remember anything really after that.
And you guys went. We went to this one pub that it's a Welsh pub in Bristol. The Llandogger Trow.
That sounds right up my alley. If
it's
I
great,
had
man.
any sort of mental capacity at that point, I definitely.
It's one of the pubs that we absolutely love. I think Llandogger is a type of boat. And it's like it's a proper like Jacobean, you know those where it's like white built brick with like black beams. It looks quite Shakespearean.
Oh yeah, I love
it's
that.
one of those, and it's all
that shit,
crooked on
mate.
the inside, mate. It's a fucking stunner of a pub, and the rugby was on. And even though I'm not a big rugby head, it was good to watch rugby in there. And I think me and you, we should do that tomorrow. Let's fucking sack off work.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Me and Jack are in cahoots.
Let's run away together.
Well, we're in cahoots about maybe don't tell anyone, but sacking work right off and going to the cinema. but now I'm thinking, should we just go pub? Which I said we weren't going to. Yeah, we'll see. This might not make the
I don't
edit,
mind.
'cause-
I'll go to the pub if I have to. Twist my arm.
Twist
So long
my
as the
arm.
card machine's working, mate, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
So before we get started on today's subject, shall I do another little review that
Yes,
we've got
please.
from one of our lovely listeners? So this one is a very heartwarming one. It's very kind and just lovely all round. This is from someone called Delwina, which I believe actually, it's jogged my memory, is someone who donated to the pod as well. So absolute double bubble from Delwina.
Cheers,
$1
Delwina.
and a lovely review. Cheers, Del.
Well, do you want to explain what the donation thing is?
Oh yeah, so for those who don't know, we've got like a little donation page linked in the episode description and on our pod description in general, I think on RSS. And yeah, if anyone fancies sort of helping us out with like subscription costs or just giving us a couple of tins or whatever, then
we've had quite a few.
obligation, but yeah, we've had a few recently,
we're really
and we're very,
appreciative
very
of-
thankful.
Yeah, we were surprised really, and it definitely helps us being able to pay for the cost of this and to we're laying off the cans for the time being, but we're gonna it helps us put money back into the pod to do better things for it and reach new people through adverts and stuff. But yeah, so everyone who's donated, massive thank you, diolch yn fawr. Anyway, back to the
Also, while we're on the subject of the donations, we also need to thank an Ian Gardiner as well, who gave us a couple of dollar. So cheers,
nice.
Ian, you're a
Cheers,
ledge, mate. He said, "Iechyd da, boys. Dwi'n dwlu ar wrando ar y podlediad, diolch," which is Welsh for
fuck you. I hate the pod. I'll pay you to shut up.
You guys suck.
No, do you want to say it again in English?
good
I
health.
interrupted you.
Yeah, in English it means good health, boys. I love listening to the pod. Thanks. So short and sweet, but yeah, cheers, Ian. Cheers,
Diolch.
mate. Hey, back to Del's review as well. So Delwina said, another US fan, 5 stars. Hope you guys don't mind hearing from another American listener. I'm nowhere near as cool as Mr. Jones from the South. Just a 65-year-old ex-librarian from St. Louis who loves all things Welsh and is trying to dysgu Cymraeg. Each morning I read a few pages of A History of Wales by John Davis, and then to cleanse my palate and give my poor old brain a rest, I've started listening to you. Lots of great, interesting information delivered in a funny, easygoing style. Dwi'n dwlu ar y pod, diolch o galon, which is Welsh for I love the pod, thanks very much.
Such an amazingly nice message, and so cool that we got a 65-year-old librarian amongst our loyal army. But it's so funny that it says, "Oh, I read the proper stuff, and then to unwind, I listen to you idiots."
Yeah. To get rid of the historical fact, I like to just listen to you guys fucking ramble.
Yeah, two ends of the spectrum there, but no, that's amazing. So that's someone from the great United States who famously have their own laws and amendments, which leads us nicely on to
Go on, finish it out.
to our today's topic, the laws of Hywel Dda. The way
What a seamless transition. That was so smooth.
I gotta start off with, I've mentioned this before, but if you Google, actually, I'd like just to make this the pod art for this week. By the way, it's a photo of Hywel Dda with a cup in his hand, with the world's most fucking sausage fingers, an absolute long boy, and it looks like it's exactly how when you remember in like year 2, you used to draw faces on a tea towel, and then you'd like get that as like
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things where every year you draw it and all the ratio would be off. You'd have like a John Merrick elephant man style head and a tiny body. Whoever drew this, it looks exactly like a tea towel drawing. And
is it the one from Wikipedia, like the first one that comes up?
Let's have a
look. He's sat on like a little
he's got like he's got a shit chair.
Yeah, huge. He's got like salad fingers. Yeah.
How bad is that? It's so.
I've seen some medieval art that's really good. There was definitely artists back then.
I know.
You know what I mean? So why have he gone? I'll have this commissioned by you. I don't know, my fucking.
My nephew.
My inept's nephew.
He's got like a ball chin as well. He's got like a little bristly ball chin.
It's not flattering, although.
No. But I'm going to be leading the charge today with discussing Hywel Dda's laws. So we're not really going to go into much about Hywel Dda, but I'll give you a quick little background on him now. So Hywel Dda, Hywel the Good, ruled Wales in the early 900s. He was one of the few Welsh kings to control the entire country. He maintained peace with Wessex to the point that they were minting coins in the English city of Chester, which had Hywel Dda's face on it. His laws were codifications and a consolidation of the common law in Wales at the time. So that means he didn't create all these laws necessarily, but he was the first person to write them down.
And he big deal back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, because before that it was all kind of hearsay, and it was just the lawyers would know it, but it wouldn't be written down, so it makes it a bit more deceitful. It could be up for manipulation and stuff, and he provided the foundation of Welsh law up until the Norman conquest, where many of the laws were abrogated by Edward I, which means they were overruled. So until like 1282, from like the 900s, he had these laws written down for 300 years, and even post Edward I, people would still opt to have some things in Welsh law where they were allowed to up until the unification under Henry VIII. There's a surviving manuscript from the 13th century in the National Library of Wales, and it's a pocket book, so it's designed for lawyers to carry around rather than to sit on a shelf in a library. So these lawyers would kind of travel from town to town, passing down the laws, and being a traveling kind of. They wouldn't go to the courthouse; the court would come to you, and you'd travel through these villages and settle in disputes.
Clever little bastards.
Yeah,
very nice.
And Hywel is highly esteemed among other medieval Welsh rulers. His name was particularly linked with the codification of traditional Welsh law, which he said, and these are called the laws of Hywel Dda. And the later part of his name, which we mentioned before, Dda, that means good, and it refers to the fact that most of his laws were quite just and good. There's this historian, David Jenkins, who describes him as being more compassionate rather than punishment, with plenty of common sense and recognition for the rights of women. Hywel Dda, he was really well educated. Even by today's standards, he had a good knowledge of Welsh, Latin and English. And his influence is still seen today because the office buildings and the original home of the Senedd is named Tŷ Hywel, which means Hywel's house, in honour of Hywel Dda. And the original assembly chamber, now known as Siambr Hywel, Hywel's chamber, is used for educational courses for children and young people's debates. And furthermore, the local health board of South West Wales, covering an area roughly corresponding to the kingdoms of Dyfed and Sael Syllig, is that how you say it? Say Syllig?
Say Syllig, is it? Yeah, something like that, isn't it? It's a difficult one even in Welsh to pronounce if you know it, isn't it? Because it's Say Syllig. I think that sounds right.
So where the local health board covers, that's where King Hywel ruled. So that's the end of that sentence.
That's an absolute list of accolades, isn't it?
Yeah, so I just thought I'd throw a bit of background into him. You know, he's a king from the 900s, and he's still massively influential in terms of Welsh culture today. I'm going to talk through quickly some of the terminology that I'm going to use, just as a bit of a help forward at the start, and to make things not too confusing. It's going to be very confusing. No, I don't think so. I think I picked through some of the more interesting bits, and I talk about this in a second, but I picked 3 specific areas to cover. But first, they're going to hear the word galanas, which means blood money. Galanas.
Ooh.
So that's Galanas. Shit, it's galanas. Okay, Lalanas.
Yeah.
Sarhad, which is like a fine for causing insult, disgrace, injury, or affront. And then I'm going to talk about the 5 classes that were defined in the Welsh law. So there were the rulers, which included the king or brenin over the kingdom, or the lords over their fiefs. Then below that you had the Free Welsh, including both the pedigreed aristocracy, which are Boneddigion, sorry, Boneddigion.
Yeah,
so you
they're
written
like,
down. Yeah,
are they
it's
like peers
gentlemen.
or something? Is it? It's like
Yeah, I think
peers?
it's a higher, but Uchelwyr. It's the kind of aristocracy of, and then next to them, the other Free Welshmen were the yeomen, who were the lower class of, but they were still free Welsh people.
Mm-hmm.
And then below that you have the Welsh serfs, or alltion, or blenediad, or tegion, which are 3 separate words, which basically mean peasants. And then below them you got foreigners, bloody foreigners. So even back then people were xenophobic. Alltidion, they were called. And then last and sadly least is the poor old slaves, so Caethion or Caethwas. So that's the 4 you have. Those at the very top being the kings and the rulers, then the Free Welsh, then the Welsh serfs, then the foreigners, then the slaves.
All right.
And the privileges, penalties, and obligations due by law varied by social status. So there's a reason it was broken down into 5 places. So there'd be different punishments depending on where you were in society. And then who these laws applied to? These laws only applied to the Cymry. So Cymry spelt with 2 Ys, meaning the people of Wales, rather than Wales itself, which is spelt with a U at the end. A good way to remember if we're talking about the country, the people, is Cymru when it has 2 Ys in it, looks like 2 legs walking. So you know that's talking about people. And Cymru with a U at the end means the place.
Is
I
that
remember that.
is that what you've been taught, or is that something you
No,
made
it
up?
was. I was taught that in school when I still remember when I saw it written down like that. I thought, oh yeah, I remember that. So yeah, these laws only apply to the people of Wales, Cymru, rather than the slaves or the serfs or the foreigners. And it also didn't matter where in Wales you were. So if you moved between Welsh kingdoms, you were still considered a fully native if you were born and bred anywhere in Wales. And say you moved from Deheubarth to from one Welsh kingdom to another, you're Welsh. These didn't diversify depending on
They
where
weren't
you
sort of
were.
kingdom specific then. That's pretty
No.
good, yeah.
From those outside of Wales who were considered between serfs and slaves, they were forbidden to offer testimony and were obliged to pledge themselves to a native Welshman, even if that Welshman was a serf. So they'd be below the serfs but above the slaves, and those people who they were pledged themselves to would be responsible for them. This status could only be removed after 3 generations in the north and as much as 9 generations in the south. After that, they were considered to be native.
Oh, but yeah. Well, how come so much more in the south than in the north? Does it say?
I think maybe because you must have a lot more trade in the south, and there's probably a lot more movement around, so you probably had a lot more natives, a lot more foreigners coming in and going.
I got you.
So yeah, and they said it as much as 9, so it might have been less in some areas, but yeah, so it could take 9 generations for you to be considered Welsh and have these laws protect you.
A measure to keep Wales Welsh?
I just want Wales to be about the Welsh, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We should help our own before we help them foreigners, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so we've had Daily Mail readers since the dawn of time.
Yeah, they've always been here.
So what I'm going to cover, though, because this took quite a lot of research and I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm just focused on the 3 main areas, that being the laws of women, criminal law and compensation. We might get to the others if we can be asked on another day.
Yeah.
But it was things like land law, inheritance, which is super important because like the inheritance laws in Wales are sometimes attributed to our lack of unity, because all children of the king were given inheritance and land, even bastards, which meant a lot of infighting and a lot of land distributed. So they would have so many times where in England you'd have one heir who had it all, and it's much easier for him to keep power, where in Wales you had this distributed amongst a whole bunch of you, and then that's when infighting comes.
I imagine that's a sort of evolution of that thing from Celtic times, isn't it? Like Cyfran, where it's like the same thing, where it doesn't matter if they're legitimate in inverted commas heirs or whatever, all your land and titles and riches and all that got split equally between all your kids, male, female, whatever, back in Celtic times. I imagine these are just for male, is it?
Yeah, this is just for male, but it's but like right. So it started off with everyone. Then as time goes on, it does get whittled down. When Wales loses its chance to do its own laws, we no longer have. We didn't get to set the inheritance laws after that. But
right.
Yeah, you're right. It probably does. If over time, they probably would have come to the realization that actually this is kind of making things a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But I'll start with the laws of women. Now, I won't say that women had it good back under laws of Hywel Dda, because, I mean, women still have it worse today, so I can't really imagine it being much better back there. But in the position of women under Welsh law was significantly different and more balanced than that of Saxon or Norman English. For example, with marriage could be established in two basic ways. There was the normal way, Route 1, the classic marriage, which is when the woman's family would have given her hand to a man in marriage. And it could have been out of love, and it could have been out of the woman's request, or it might have been more for financial reasons or the unity of families. But there's also this second route, which is described as abnormal. This is where the woman could elope, which means to run away secretly and get married without the consent of her kindred, which means her family. And in this second abnormal way, her family could compel her to return if she was still an absolute virgin loser. But but if she was not, and she became a dirty shagger, then she could not be compelled to return, which gave the woman more autonomy. Not to say it probably didn't come with stigma and stress, whatever, but she was allowed to do that, and they couldn't catch retaliation. And also, for some added protection, if this eloped marriage lasted more than 7 years, she then got the same entitlements she would have got had she been given away by her kin. So she'd been allowed back into her, having some inheritance from her family, having some, things she was entitled to before she was like.
Oh, it's not all bad then if you're a dirty little shagger.
Yeah, so if you're a dirty old shagger and you follow your heart, if the marriage lasts and it's true love, then all is forgiven. And the big thing about Welsh law is retaliation is not meant to be accepted. These laws are meant to stop retaliation, so they have things written down for a reason. They're quite specific, so 7 years being a very specific time. And I'll cover that when we get to the other crimes in a bit, but just something to mention. So then also, I look at the payments involved, because nothing like says romance, like transactional value. But we have a thing called ambor, or commutation fee, which was a fee payable to the woman's lord on the loss of her virginity, whether on marriage or otherwise. So I couldn't find a decent definition of lord, so I wasn't 100% sure who this was, but from what I gather, it applied to the lower classes. So,
so if you were a serf of some baron or lord or whatever, you shagged her and took a V plate, you owed him everything comes with a price.
Then we have coill, which is a maiden fee, which was a payment due to the woman from her husband on the morning after the marriage, making her transition from virgin to married woman, which seems pretty cheap, chucking some pennies after your first night shagging. So here you go, darling.
Yeah. Cheers, you dirty trollop. Here you go.
And then there's the dower, so dowry or agweddi, which was the amount of the shared property they now owned as a couple, which is due to the woman if the couple separated before the end of 7 years. So this happened if you were given away by your kin or if you eloped. But after 7 years, if you were divorced, if you broke up from there, 'cause I don't think divorces were divorces weren't such a thing. So the total of this agweddi, this dowry, depended on the woman's status by birth, regardless of the actual size of the common pool of property you had together. So if the marriage broke up after the end of 7 years, the woman was entitled to exactly half of the common pool. If you were to break up after 7 years and they'd split everything, things like linen, dishes, other domestic items, then animals, and even like trees in your garden that you owned, these were known as argyfrau, and these were immediately accessible after the marriage to both parties. So if you were getting married, if you say you've been together 8 years, you decide it ain't working, everything you own together is now half yours. So half the fruit you get from this tree is now mine, half the fruit is now yours, all that stuff. And it was split.
I don't know why I thought when you were saying half of the tree, like someone goes, right, I'm having the top half, chop it down now.
So I know that's a bit confusing, but did that make sense roughly?
Yeah, I get it. So that's pretty. I mean, like you said, I imagine it wasn't great being a woman back then, but at least there was sort of some contingencies in place, and that you're not just if it's not just all the like the man gains everything.
Yeah, if you're thrown out,
that's pretty.
Because also it's often quite hard, but especially in the like Victorian times, if you would, your husband didn't want to be with you anymore, they often just say you're insane and then try and get you locked up, and you didn't have anywhere to look after yourself. But here you had your own means, you had your own. I like the fact that linen was discussed. It's like, that's my piece of linen. Like, God damn you!
Right then, cut it in half. Then I'm having a
You're not getting your hands on my linen. The husband crying in court.
What if you like? But I look after the sheep all the time. I love Betsy and Win and all that. You can't have half of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna fucking shoot him. I'm gonna shoot Betsy, and my new husband's gonna shag me on it. So cheating's the next part. So if she was caught with if she caught her fella being a little rotter, getting his end away with Mavano from the tavern, then she was entitled to a payment of 6 pence, i.e. half a pound, for the first time, then a full pound the second time. I think the other person was getting the full pound. And then if she caught him cheating a third time, then she would be entitled to divorce him. And I don't know if divorce is the actual correct word, because I think divorce has a bit more of a religious bearing to it, which I don't think was completely established. But you're allowed to separate from him.
But sort of separated in law, at least.
In law, yeah. And then if the husband had a concubine, which is such a funny word, but it means like which is a woman who lives with a man but has a lower status than his wife. So imagine like some of the free Welshman was cheating on his free Welsh woman with a serf, so someone from a lower class than him. So that's what a concubine is. Then the wife was allowed to hit her without having to pay any compensation, even if it resulted in the concubine's death, which seems tragically unfair. Like, you're beating up the woman who isn't married, and the cheating husband gets away with it.
And then he goes, have you been shagging more concubines? Oh no, it was just another free Welsh woman, but Eli is a couple of quid because I'm on my first strike, so leave me be.
And now when it came to the wives being hit, they could only be beat for 3 things. One was giving away something which she was not entitled to give away. Now this one seems oddly specific, like Hoel's wife gave away his favourite tunic and he was fuming about it but couldn't legally do anything. So it's like, right,
I fucking love that shit.
Right, so I suppose if that ever happens again, I will kill you.
Just randomly now, just a random example.
And that was the first
fucking
one.
wife gives away your favourite fucking tunic.
That's the first one written down. You're allowed to be struck if you were found with another man. And then the third one, your husband could strike you if you were wishing a blemish on a husband's beard, which I assume means wishing the husband ill will or talking badly behind him. So wishing a blemish on your husband's beard.
It's not literal. Yeah, I hope you have a bit of a bald patch just below your chin. You what?
So if he beat her for any other cause, she was entitled to the payment of sarhat, which is a fine for causing an affront or pain or injury. But now, if he found her cheating and he hit her, he was no longer allowed any further compensation. So, if she was cheating, he then couldn't also get any compensation in like money terms from either party. So it was either I get to hit you or I get some money from this. So that was Howell's like thing of not having retribution and retaliation. If you make payment, then that's the end of it. You can't do any more. Or if you hit them, it ends after that.
I mean, I don't have a single clue about what Norman or Saxon law or whatever at the time was, but I imagine they weren't as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I presume that they weren't as good.
Women
for
were
women.
property. Women were much more considered property. But also it's different because in Welsh culture, women fought by their men quite a lot. So they'd be the equivalent of shield maidens. So they weren't seen.
It's quite interesting, like that you see the sort of the line, if you like, from. Because in Celtic culture as well, same thing. It's like a woman wasn't considered any less or whatever.
No.
If she was a good fighter, you'd give her as much respect as you would a man, kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's interesting to see the kind of lines following, you know.
Yeah, so that kind of stayed, because it stays in the collective consciousness, you know, because you tell stories about your grandma and your grandfather. You know, you have these tales not just from one side of the family who fought in great battles. And I wasn't going to stray into inheritance law, so please forgive me for a moment whilst I stray to this field. But according to the law, women were not allowed to inherit land. However, there were exceptions, even at an early date. So this is a poem dated for the first half of the 11th century. So women weren't allowed to inherit land, but they could inherit items. So like I said earlier, if you were to elope and your marriage lasted 7 years, you'd then be allowed inheritance from your family, but it wouldn't be in the form of land. But there were exceptions. So this poet, an Elgi, so let me get this right. There's a poem dated from the first half of the 11th century, so that's in the 1000s, for a landowner from Anglesey. And the poet says that after his death, his estate was inherited by 4 women who had originally brought to Aidan's court, so that's the landowner, Aidan. They were brought to him as captives after a raid, but he found favour with them. And he ended up really liking them as like his daughters. So the rule in this poem, they talk about the rule of division of movable property. So that like things you can walk, you know, a cart, a chest, something you can move that's property of the people. So when one of the married couple died, the property was cut into 2 halves. So half went to the wife, and then the other half went to these children. It's up to the person to give it away. So you have 2 halves of your property. I can give one to you as my podcast wife, and then I can give half to whoever I wanted. And he chose women in this instance over his own family and stuff. So it wasn't completely uncommon that women would do better in inheritance than men.
No, I get what you mean. So like in certain instances, maybe the children would inherit, like if they were all women, for example, they'd get quite a good deal. If a father died and bequeathed his 2 daughters like all his property, or half his property rather, then the wife gets half, and the 2 daughters are doing quite all right out of that situation.
Perfect.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then we got crime. So now we're into the juicy bit. First is murder. Murder. Oh no, I was doing 2 voices there. It's got murder, and murder.
The punishment for the crime is murder.
Penalty for the crime is murder. So murder was regarded as an offence against the family rather than against society or the state. It was normally dealt with payment for the family of the deceased, with the amount dependent on the social status of the victim. So this is the term galanas appears, which I mentioned earlier, which is the term to describe paying for blood, so blood money, which is also so another way of saying it's compensation from for the victim's family. So the galanas varies depending on status. For example, the galanas of the king of Deheubarth was set in an impossibly long line of impossibly perfect cattle to ensure that it could never be met. So it's to say, if you were to kill me, you would owe 50,000 cows in all of the most pristine condition in the world. But to say for the family of a murdered slave, they received no galanas. So if I was a slave and I got killed, my wife got no compensation, but the person who owned that slave would get compensation, which is incredibly unfair.
Yeah, because presumably the slave counts as property.
Yeah. And the sum that owed could be modified in different situations. For example, if you attack someone in an ambush, that doubled the base fine. And I assume that's because it was premeditated rather than a dust-up. So say if you had a fight in a tavern and you killed someone, you had a base fine you had to pay. But if it was premeditated, you waited for them, you ambushed them, then you had to double it because that was premeditated.
Right, I get you.
So, and another reason for this blood money or galanas approach was so that once it had been paid, the victim's family then was legally bound to forego any retaliation or vengeance. In Welsh, this is called dial. That's the term they use in law. So you would no longer have any more dial. You couldn't get revenge because of they legally paid.
So you couldn't then go batter or kill
No.
someone who'd inflicted harm on someone, a relative of yours, and say, "Oh, well, I'm only doing it because of the insult to my family." If he's paid the
Galanas.
Yeah. Galanas. If you paid the Galanas, then that's sorted.
done.
Then it's done.
Yeah. And then one last stipulation: if someone had been murdered by poison, then that carried the death penalty. No payment, you get killed for that. And I suppose that comes down to the lack of honour and the deceitfulness that poison brings.
I was just about to say, because that's like a coward's weapon, isn't it? Or coward's tool, I guess.
Yeah. So that there is murder. But so that's where you get the blood money from. And then next we have assault. And the this was dealt with a similar fashion, but it only applied to the upper classes. Any serf who struck a free man was liable to have the offending limb removed. So say if I was a commoner and I punched you, I'd have my hand removed. And then the crime of rape was treated as theft and remediated by payment of another fine, so a didru. Payment of which restored the woman's virginity for legal purposes. So she'd still be classed as a virgin if that payment was recovered.
You can literally pay to have your V card back.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. And a man who could not pay the fine would have his testicles removed, which is
Yep, sounds about right.
yeah. And now, if you're a cheeky little tea leaf, or what, my governor, like a naughty little thief, if you were a little thief, the first time you were caught, you were imprisoned. But if you were caught a third time and you were a serf, you'd get your hand chopped off. Although there's one stipulation: if you were caught in the act with goods in your hand more valuable than 4 Kenyogai, which is 4 pennies, then you'd be liable for hanging, which seems a bit obscure.
That's a very small price.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously a penny back then was more than now. But
yeah. So
2 pence pieces, you're fucking for the gallows, mate. See you later.
Although, if you were a hungry bugger and you'd passed at least 3 towns and no one had offered you a bowl of gruel or a mug of warm cocoa, aka you hadn't been given any food, and you were caught robbing some sausages or bacon or anything for that matter, you wouldn't be punished. So it was society's duty to feed you, and if you weren't and you stole, and you could say that you've been through 3 towns, you wouldn't get any punishment.
How could you prove that in a court of law? Like, going, why'd you steal these sausages? I'm starving.
I ain't had
for
nothing
the
to
last
eat
3
but maggoty
towns.
bread.
Yeah.
So not too sure.
You could have had a bowl full of gruel and just been a greedy bastard.
There was a concession there was much more compassion in these laws. So, and especially common land was much more of a thing. So there could be animals you could find and stuff. Whereas when the Normans took over.
The king owns everything.
Everything,
the deers in the land and in the woods and stuff like that. Yeah.
So, and also there was so there should have been enough food to feed people, and you shouldn't let anyone go hungry. So to say that in a clearer way, if you're a starving little urchin, you wouldn't get in trouble because a girl's got to eat. So
it's true.
Aiding and abetting. So if you witnessed a killing and you failed to protect the victim or received stolen property, you were also punished with a didru or a fine. So if you let people do what they like, you didn't interject to help someone, or if you didn't report a killing, then you were fined.
Right. So that's pretty good. Sort of promoting helping your neighbour or whatever.
Yeah, and these were kind of laws that were already they reflected the sentiment and traditions of Wales already. So not to say he necessarily made them up; he just codified them. But one thing that he did bring to an end was the right to a noble. So he ended the noble's right to a trial by combat because he just found that unjust. So knights were already better equipped and probably some of the best fighters. Then they could get away with a lot of their stuff by just demanding a trial by combat. So that ended in Wales under Hywel Dda's law.
That's good. Yeah, because back in. If my memory serves, the trial by combat, you wouldn't necessarily have to fight yourself in certain situations, would you? You could pick a champion for you, like in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Or rather, Game of Thrones is like in real life. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could get like a real shit hot knight against like some little serf who's got like a rake or something.
Oh Lord. So I'm going to the last bit now. Is the claiming compensation, which I think is the most fucking mental bit of all of it. What's your view on it all so far, anyway?
Super interesting, man. I didn't know any about this. I know I've been looking forward to you doing Hywel Dda for a while in his laws because I know you keep protesting that you don't have a poster.
I really do like him. But I am impressed by them. But what do you think about
this is your magnum opus?
What do you think about them in terms of their modern morality to them, and do you think they stand up to today's law?
They are more forgiving than I thought, because you just assume when you think of medieval times that everything was so fucking hard and harsh and horrible. It's way more forgiving than I thought, and like you said, it's got more of an air of let's not be overly cruel. It's more about look, pay the fine or whatever, and then that's that done. We don't want any more. We don't want violence begetting violence and all that. So it's quite interesting that it's not as
you speak the common tongue, I hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last bit now is probably where it gets a little bit more medieval. So, we're talking about the fine art of claiming compo, and by that I mean compensation. Medieval Welsh law placed a high value on compensation for any breach of the law. In particular, high and detailed compensation values were given for each limb of the body. So there are 9 limbs of equal value. That's the hands, the eyes, the lips, the feet, and the nose. So that's your 2 hands, So all that makes the 9 things: 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 lips, 2 feet, and 1
Yeah.
nose.
And
they
those
all
equate to the same sort of value, you say?
yeah. So they're all valued at 480 pennies. Each other limb is carefully valued and can be altered depending on the various influencing factors. The value of these 9 limbs represented 12% of the standard galanas, aka the blood money, owned for the murder of a bonheddig, aka a standard freeman, whose galanas is valued at 3,780 pennies, or 63 cows. So say if you killed someone, you'd owe them 378 pennies, or 63 cows, and what you couldn't pay, you'd make up for with your limbs. And you could... So, yeah, 480
I see what you mean.
is 12%.
These are taking a turn now, haven't they?
Yeah. So it does seem like murder was permitted if you're rich, which that's kind of what fines are. They say that, don't they? It's legal at a price, so you can afford
legal
to
for
do
the
something.
wealthy, yeah.
Yeah, although 3,780 pennies is, and 63 cows is a huge sum even back then.
I imagine, only the top dogs would be able to afford that.
So these values are really, really straightforward, except for the ears. So if the ears were lost but the person could still hear, the price lies at 160 pennies, whilst deafness, even without the loss of an ear, retains 480. So if they chopped off your ear but you could still hear, then that gets reduced to only 160 pennies. They want you to be deaf to
so what they do? Just stick it in your ear a little bit, and
they either cut
stab
off your
your
ear
eardrum.
and pop your ear, punch your ears. Have a hit you on the side of the head to burst your eardrums, or they slice off your ear and hope it gets infected and like that. But I just pretend to be deaf in one ear and play the smart game. What's that, Jimmy? Speak up.
There's no ear doctors back then, is it? They could prove it. You just go bear. Sorry.
Sorry. Fingers were valued at 80 pence each, whilst a thumb was valued at 180 pence, which corresponds to the use in gripping agricultural equipment of arms. So, thumbs were more important because of how important they are to humanity.
I love that. Just it's 100 and, what is it, 80p per
finger.
Did you say? So
Yeah.
you're like, you're 160p short. Take my little pinkies then. I don't need them so much.
Yeah. Then there's a thing called the Ordwerth a Cyfnerth, the recessions, which are these manuscripts that contain these laws of Howell. In there, they say that, and that's kind of this mobile book you could take with you to learn more about it, and to lawyers would carry on them. They valued a fingernail at 30 pence. So if you didn't want to give your whole finger, but you could get your fingernails ripped off, that's 30p. Whilst the top of a finger to the first knuckle is valued at 26 2/3 of a penny.
God, they really are going into very detailed, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just every single part. What if I just want to give a one little knuckle? Right, okay, that's 26.
So the price of the fingernail is valued at 0.8% of the galanas, which interestingly is the same as a thumbnail in the Wessex tariff, which also stands at 0.8 of the wergild value for the man, which wergild is similar to the galanas.
Ah, right.
So these are quite similar to what Alfred the Great had. So and also it's also German, very old English word, so a Saxon word, and it means the compensation paid by a person committing an offence to the injured party, or in the case of death to his family. So they had the same tariff of a fingernail in both counties, so in Wales and in Wessex. Right. So some historians explain that these similarity percentages reflect the coexistence of two legal systems in Wales, where we'd also have the Welsh and English law. But we also know that Hywel and Alfred the Great were really close, with Hywel learning a lot from old Alf. And, I think we discussed it before that he paid homage to Alfred the Great so that Alfred the Great would let him rule Wales and live in quite a lot of peace and harmony together. Another reason why Hywel was so successful in Wales, because he didn't have to fight the English all the time.
Yeah, because he was mates with old Alfred, wasn't it? He got a lot of concessions that maybe later rulers wouldn't get because they were all at odds all the time.
And he did acknowledge Alfred as the ruler of all of Britain, or something similar to those words. So it's a bit subservient, but it really benefited Wales, and it made Alfred
long-term gain, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So now back to this a sec. If someone was attacked really badly, then they were to be given £3, not pennies. And these bad attacks are defined as when a man is cut so that his brain can be seen. I mean, if your brain can be seen, you're fucked, mate.
I don't think £3's gonna really make
fucking
difference
keep
to
pennies.
you then,
When a man is pierced so his entrails can be seen. Again, mate, £3 ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
Or when one of the 4 posts of the body are broken, so that's the posts are your limbs, so your leg, your arms, if one of those 4 is broken, because that is like a death sentence back then, because you can't heal it properly, that there is also £3. And the body parts are classed for compensation based on how much they have use in society, so the higher the use, the higher the compensation cost. So
okay, yeah. So I imagine, like, that's why legs and hands and
legs and
whatever.
hands,
yeah.
Makes
So sense.
So for the loss of hearing, for example, as well as the loss of the testes of the penis, resulted in very high compensation, because their loss of hearing can cause either danger, and the loss of the old dickleberry will result in the inability to continue lineage. So those were 2 of the most highly important in a kin-based society. So not being able to hear people made sure you couldn't really get a wife too easily. You'd risk being attacked when you can't hear them. And also,
imagine the sort of deaf sub-community wasn't really a thing back then with the sign language and stuff, was it? It was just people shouting at you, probably.
Yeah. So if you were to lose that, then you could expect to have a much higher rate of compensation from the attacker. And then the tongue is also particularly high value because, like the ear, it formed a primary means of communication. I mean, can you imagine not having a tongue? It would be really hard to entertain the masses and chat to people back then. We'd
hard to enunciate without one. Yeah.
I mean, our job now is to educate the world on Welsh history. We'd be fucked, mate. They'd need compensation big time.
I need at least £3 from my attacker if they take my tongue.
Your fork tongue. And there were different grades of compensation depending on how badly someone was left disfigured. So these went from a craith ogyfarch, which means a conspicuous scar that was obvious and attracted remarks from others. So if other people were like, "Oh God, look at that boy's face," then you'd get bigger compensation. Like in Game of Thrones, when old Dinklage has his old face chopped in half. To a craith gwyddedig, which is the scars that had minimal impact on the day-to-day life of the victim. So the 3 most conspicuous scars are given for on the face, which is 60 pence, on the hand, which is 60 pence, on the foot, which is 30 pence, whilst a hidden scar is only given 4 pence. And the Latin texts make provision for a cloak. So the translated text of this says they can make a provision for a cloak to cover facial disfigurement, and that front teeth were also recorded to have a much higher value. So if you had to cover your face with a cloak because of how bad you looked, you'd get more compensation. And if your front teeth were affected, they were valued higher for more compensation than your back teeth.
All right. So it's that's interesting that. Yeah, if you got a facial scar and people are like, minging, then it's like you get a bit more dollar for it.
Yeah. So that's the end of my whole whistle stop tour.
That was good, mate. Interesting.
Yeah. Was
very
that all right?
Interesting. Yeah, it was great, man. Very interesting. I didn't realise they'd quite calculated the worth of like a fingernail, but fair play to them. They've obviously done their homework.
It's pretty gross to think of some of the having to get your fingernail pulled off at that time. Like no anaesthetic, just some grubby pliers.
Yeah, and then they're going, "Oh look, I'm gonna get my blood money from you now, and it's X amount. I don't want you to take the hands off. I want your lips." It's like, bro, don't take my lips.
Yeah, the lips.
No one looks good without their lips.
Yeah,
you know?
Imagine that getting your fucking.
And there'd just be some minging sheep shears or something
like
that. Just going, come on then.
Just chopped off a sheep's testicle about an hour ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no thanks.
So that's how that. We might go back to some other stuff, but I did think the other stuff was a little bit drier. It's more for other history podcasts to talk about the inheritance. We're here for the guts and the ghoulies.
Not the cool history podcast, like us.
Yeah, we're not like your other history parts.
Not like your Nana's history podcast, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I've kept you longer than we thought, so you might need to go back to work.
That's all right, mate. I've only had a couple of Outlook pop-ups come up, and I wasn't quick enough to read them, but I'm sure it's fine. It'll be all right.
Well, if you guys could keep listening to us, leaving a review, sharing it with your mates, we'd be very, very grateful.
Yes, and thank you to everyone who's stuck with us so far already. We're having a blinder this season 4.
Yeah.
Last season was great. We're on the up and up.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan, watch your back, mate.
yeah, Toe Rogan, watch your back, you freak. We're coming for you and your little fingernails.
Is this us starting a feud now? Is it? It's
Yeah.
gonna go viral.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Come
to
on,
pay a
Joe. What you
galanas
got,
to
mate?
him. Be
Yeah.
fucking bankrupt. I'll be walking around on like all nubs. I'll have nothing left by
Oh.
Christmas.
Next time I see you, like, what's happened to your lips? What's happened
I
to your
don't want
tongue?
to talk about it. I don't want to say nothing. Anyway, see you later, mate.
Yeah. Cheers, all.